Good morning, everyone. This is State Treasurer Dale Falwell welcoming everyone to the 95th consecutive Ask Me Anything. We just got through with our Council of State meeting, and as usual on Tuesdays, we have Council of State, Senior Staff, Council of State, Ask Me Anything, and then on the Local Government Commission. So as I talk about Ask Me Anything, I want to thank all of those that have participated on this call for a number of years. Very honored that since 2017 that we've pledged to conduct the most transparent administration in state government, and we've insisted on open government, and which led to our communications team and the Treasurer's Office receiving the Open Government Coalition Award, otherwise known as the Sunshine Award, several years ago. And as a part of our promise to conduct our people's business with an affinity for disclosure, we had instituted now for the 95th time our monthly teleconference call with the media. The format has changed over the years from online meeting teams, but the concept remains the same. And we're glad to be with you today and be glad to take any questions you might have. Okay. Ray, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, I'm curious about what's going on with the town of Speed they're on the LGC agenda this afternoon.
There is a lot going on with the town of Speed, starting with the fact that their audits aren't complete. We have sent folks down there to talk to their governing board about what's going on. I don't see any governance going on in the town of Speed. They continue to collect taxpayer money, but they are not doing what they're supposed to be doing in terms of the complying with the standards and the laws of the Local Government Commission. We've got similar issues, Ray, in Pilot Mountain, which you've probably read about also. So in terms of these cities that, mostly cities, but obviously we have some counties that are in distress also. We continue to demand good governance, transparency, and competency. Follow up?
So what action are you all asking the LGC to take this afternoon?
I think I know the answer to that question, but I will have our comms team get back to you about that agenda item after this call, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Next question. Yeah, just yes. You can go ahead. Brian Anderson. Brian, you have the floor. You're muted.
Brian, you have to unmute.
He's leaving and coming back in.
Okay. Who is the next one? Number 7.
AP
Dillon.
Good morning, Treasurer. Thank you for hosting the last of the Ask Me Anything calls. I was wondering if you could maybe give us just a few of the highlights over the years of hosting this call that you felt were useful for the reporters in terms of getting information out to the public.
Thank you, AP. As I've said to many of you publicly and privately, if you look at the demands of being the keeper of the public purse, and if you look at my chronological age, I don't have a lot of time to waste keeping information from y'all that you deserve. And that's the way I've always treated this office. So the reason we do this Ask Me Anything is that's the first step of that. And there have been times on this call where I didn't have all the answers that you were seeking, like in the case a moment ago about speed. But what's important is that our communication staff who makes this jump up on the table, they're able to get back with you on a timely basis. So just doing what I committed to doing as the keeper of the public purse has been the most important part of this call. Early on, the calls went in all kinds of strange directions. We would have the Financial Times on there, Business NC, and the Beaufort Observer. That would be the range, the London Times, excuse me, international, national, and local press. And we can get a call. I can get a question about economic development deals, about the pension plan, or about the dredging money that was in the Outer Banks. So that's just an example of the broad range, but and DOT. So there's lots of things that come to mind, but mainly I want to take this opportunity, AP, just to thank the staff who partnered with me and committed with me over the last 8 years to make this happen every consecutive month. And I hope that you folks have found it valuable also.
Quick follow-up.
Yes.
How is the transition going with Mr. Briner coming in, and has he given any indication that he plans to continue this kind of transparency with the media?
I have no idea what his plans are. The transition is going well. I am committing to everything I said that I would do regarding Treasurer-elect Briner. That after the election, before the election, I invited both candidates for treasurer to attend every meeting that I generally chaired, and there's lots of those. And secondly, after the election was over, Representative Treasurer-elect Briner has been invited to sit at the head table as we've chaired these meetings. Today, I invited him to the Council of State meeting, where I had an opportunity to introduce him to the Council of State room. And we're meeting here in the next hour or so. And I have a big stack here on my left called Next Treasurer, and we go through it, and he memorializes it in his head, and then I'm able to throw that stuff away. So, and some of that he may choose to keep. So that's what we're working on. Follow up? AP,
I'm good, thank you.
AP, I did want to offer, and I did not say this in the Council of State this morning because I was so focused on what I wanted to say about Cynthia, my wife. You know, Treasurer Moore had 9/11 and Treasurer Cow had the great financial crisis. We had COVID, but the thing that I did not mention this morning, which people seem to have forgotten, is that we were probably less than 48 hours away from another bank run on the banks in this country in 2022. And as chair of the State Banking Commission, that was a big deal. San Francisco tries to claim the fact that they're the second biggest financial center in the United States. I happen to think North Carolina is, and Charlotte in particular. But when you're regulating institutions as large as BB&T Truist and First Citizens Bank, First Bank, and 31 other state chartered banks, that's something I wish I'd said at the Council of State meeting this morning because it nearly happened. Thank you. Brian?
Thank you. My apologies for that. I'm pulling it up, a question on just one bill that has gotten a lot of attention has been SB 382 for appointments, and there's been specifically for the State Board of Elections this effort to strip away the governor's appointment power.
Right.
But instead of it being the legislature this time, it would be to the state auditor, with the argument being, that's under the executive branch. I'm curious what you make of that.
Yeah, I haven't read that legislation. Obviously, and the General Assembly's never consulted me regarding that legislation. I think voting should be secure, and it should be simple. And in my observation, looking out over the next several years, with the challenges that this country is facing, the last thing that needs to be going through people's minds is whether their vote counts and whether it's accurate. So there's been a lot of back and forth regarding the Board of Elections and between the Governor Cooper and the General Assembly. I've not been a part of any of those conversations, and I will parrot what Auditor-elect Bullock has said, that he was not a participant in those conversations either, but he will do what the law demands.
And I had two other really quick ones. Just, I know earlier this year there was an FBI probe into how they thought you had used state-owned vehicles. Was there any update or finality on that you can share?
Other than the fact that what I said when we learned of this June 19th, that we, as we have for the last couple of years, we have been compliant in terms of getting information regarding this particular issue. I have the highest degree of respect for the District Attorney of Wake County, in addition to the State Board of Education, the State Bureau of Investigation, excuse me, State Board of Education's meeting today also, and I'm on that board. And the use of the state car is something that we did in order to do what I was voted to do and sworn to do, and that is to address the needs of the constituents through the state treasurer's office. We did all of that with the highest degree of productivity and accessibility and efficiency, and obviously the common sense that goes along with that. It's pretty interesting, as I was at the Council of State meeting today, as I observe, I was probably the only person on the Council of State who actually drove myself in a state car to those meetings over the last 8 years. So that is still ongoing, but our mind and our door and our hearts are open to surrender any information that we have regarding this. And at the end of the day, it's our job to be helpful and gracious and compliant to those that are asking questions. And we've been asking our own questions for at least 2 years about this particular subject.
And just one last one I had to ask. I mean, you've been one of the most accessible statewide officials in North Carolina, if not the most, to members of the press here. So I selfishly have to ask, you going to run for elected office again?
Yeah, my thoughts going forward are to make sure that these three things are happy with me in order: God, my family, and my motorcycles. I love fixing things. I love saving money, and I'm going to be focusing on those three things going forward. 28 years in public service, 20 years in Raleigh. I'm looking forward to getting back to my routines and my family, not just family, but friends, and my community back in Winston-Salem. As some of you know on this call, I never established a second life or lifestyle 20 years ago when I came to Raleigh. I wanted to work and sleep in Raleigh, and that's it. And that's exactly what I've done. At the end of the day, I think that people who come to Raleigh and are half-assed at what they do, or they create a separate life for themselves, what does that say about these things they say they love back home? So the reason that I've worked so hard, been so accessible, and taken the job that I was sworn to do and am supposed to be doing so seriously is out of respect, starting with Cynthia, my wife, and our family. Because if you leave these things to come to Raleigh just to be, as I said earlier, half-assed at what you do, then it's not very respectful for those things that you're leaving. So on top of that, what I'm going to miss, which you didn't ask me, Brian, I'm going to miss the creativity and the courage and the hard work of the state employees. And this has nothing to do with their pedigree. It has nothing to do with the shingles on the wall. It has to do with their hearts and intuition. It's amazing some of the ideas that these folks have given me over the last 20 years, both legislative staff, Division of Employment Security, and now as the keeper of the public purse to address these things. And it's stunning what you can accomplish when you actually are an intentional listener to those that actually are doing the work of keeping us in the check delivery business. My quick and last example of that is that during Hurricane Helene, we had mailed out 8,000 or so checks, retirement checks for millions and millions of dollars. And a few weeks later, no one had received their check. And so we got around the table and we came to the consensus, instead of, creating this posse and go out and find out where all these checks are, we set up a system because people were calling us. And I said, how about this? Let's get a couple of people from different parts of the state who are calling us who have not received their checks and get their permission to call for them to call us when their check arrives, because we knew instinctively, just common sense, that wherever these checks were bottled up, whatever tractor trailer they were in, whatever warehouse they were in, once that clog got unclogged, that all the checks would come. And we said, if we don't hear from anybody in the next 48 hours, then we're going to send out the posse. And within 36 hours, we started getting a call from the east, which wasn't really affected by the storm. Got a call from the west, got a call from the Piedmont. Said we received our checks. That's the kind of slowing the ball down so you can see the strings. That's the kind of culture that we've tried to have here.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Dave?
Am I unmuted? Yeah. Thank you. Nice tie. I agree with others who thank you for your openness in doing this, because that's a real public service in itself, and we hope that it continues with you and the next treasurer and many other public officials, especially us in the hinterlands who don't live in the triangle. I had a couple of quick things. One, you said these other folks on Council of State got rides to the meetings. Where are the meetings held? Why do they need rides?
Well, let me rephrase that. What I said is that other than the black Suburbans that the governor and the lieutenant governor ride in, in my observation over the last 8 years, I was the only Council of State member who drove a state assigned vehicle to the Council of State meeting without a driver. So you can I'm not disparaging people who take different methods, but generally speaking, most of the members of the Council of State get reimbursed for personal vehicles.
Thank you. You also mentioned the almost meltdown of the financial markets. Why did you bring that up? What did you mean by that?
What I meant by that, Dave, is to draw attention to the people at NCOB and the North Carolina Banking Commission, who have the responsibility through Ray Grace and Katie Boskin to make sure that NC stands for no crisis. She mainly and others on her staff were on the phone continuously with the FDIC and with their other counterparts around the United States regarding the contagion that Silicon Valley Bank could have started. And it's so ironic that one of the banks that we regulate, First Citizens Bank, ended up doing the transaction to take over Silicon Valley Bank, which was great for North Carolina, as you've reported on, great for shareholders, and great for those customers. So the reason I drew attention to it is that it's one of those little things that happens and goes on in state government that the state treasurer has some responsibility for as chair of the State Banking Commission. But the reason I brought it up today, Dave, is actually to push the power and the credit down to Ray Grace, who built that team over the last several years, decades, and Katie Boskin, because we had a very open line of communication about what was actually happening with the contagion. And I think you've reported on this. I want to remind those that are still on the call that during the great financial crisis, I was in the legislature, and some of you know I had an office that was not large enough to hold a state-issued desk. That's how small the office was. And I was a legislator, and I had to get something copied. And I walked out of my office, and you also know I'm not technological. And I walked out of my office to try to get something copied, and no one was on the 5th floor of the legislative building, Dave. No one. No legislative assistant. Couldn't find one. So finally, I asked somebody, I said, where's everybody? And they said they all went to the State Employees Credit Union to take their money out of the bank. That really happened. And my point is, the reason I brought focus on this morning is that I want people to realize that that could have happened this time also, and it would have been far worse. And do you agree, Dave? Do you agree, Dave?
Well, it doesn't matter what I think. That's a great story, and I thank you for explaining what you meant. Yeah, absolutely, and crediting Ray and Ms. Boskin.
Yeah.
The other thing people will remember a lot about your tenure is your distrust of Wall Street and investment fees, and your distrust of North Carolina healthcare system, hospital executives in particular. I was wondering, are you more confident or less confident on those two issues that we're going in the right direction for the common good on investment fees and healthcare in our state?
As far as Wall Street is concerned, I am more confident about the sunshine that I and others have put on the whole issue of ESG. And making sure that we are not violating our fiduciary role of always putting our customer first. So I'm very optimistic about that trend on ESG. As far as Wall Street fees are concerned, I think that, and we were probably one of the first ones to do this in a very major way several years ago, making initial investments, but also having these sidecars, these co-investments that in some instances had zero fee and zero management fee and zero participation fee. So you make an initial investment, but then you have these opportunities to co-invest along with the same manager. And they have worked out spectacularly for our pension plan. Thirdly is that we have got very active several years ago. When you look at the changeover of chief investment officers like at CalPERS and CalSTRS and some of these other major plans, even our plan had 8 CIOs, I think, in 12 years. What generally happens is when a new CIO comes in, they liquidate the personnel and they liquidate the investments. And so I started thinking about secondary markets and how do people liquidate those things that are tied up for 12 to 15 years? And I inherited about $12 billion worth of that, $12 billion of commitments that have been made by the previous treasurer that were tied up for 12 to 15 years, where they sell them into the secondary market in some instances for pennies on the dollar. So we set up a very flexible, simple plan in the state treasurer's office. And this dwarfs what we did to stand up our own internal index fund in just a matter of months after I got here. And we set up this plan so that we could buy these some of these in the secondary market at pennies on the dollar. And some of these investments Dave, are things that we already own that we're just buying more of. And I'm very excited about that. So my optimism about Wall Street and sunshine and fees and co-investments and ESG is positive. My opinion and my pessimism regarding the healthcare cartel in the state, that's all going in the wrong direction. As you've learned just in your own backyard, when we thought that Atrium only had 4,000 liens on people's houses, they had probably double that amount. And what's not being talked about, whether it's the governor's plan or other plans, what's not being talked about is the harm that they put on the folks of this state by putting liens on people's properties. The stunting of people's upward mobility because of medical debt. I just, in the process of renewing my motorcycle insurance, Dave, and if you read that page 8 of the disclaimers, it literally says in there that your credit score may have determined what your premium is. These credit scores determine what you pay for insurance, car insurance, cell phone, whether you're able to rent an apartment in Charlotte, North Carolina, and obviously the interest rate used to buy a house. So I'm glad that, quote, they said, we're not going to do this anymore, but repent doesn't totally mean to stop. It means to reverse course and repair what you've broken. And I think the boards of trustees are liable for this, not just these multimillionaire CEOs, but the boards of trustees of these multi-billion-dollar corporations who disguise themselves as nonprofits are responsible for this. And I don't know what the new administration is going to do, but I think they're going to take a real hard look at the middle finger that's been given to President Biden and President Trump over the last several years regarding transparency. I think that they're going to take a hard look at what a nonprofit really is and actually start enforcing some of those laws. And that doesn't need to happen just at the federal level. It also needs to be happening with our state also. And all I've ever been after for healthcare is high quality, high access, and low cost healthcare. And over that period of time, quality's gone down, access, in my opinion, has gone down. And if you look at Forbes or Fortune, whichever one just determined us as having the least value for healthcare in the United States, every one of those 3 measures have gone in the wrong direction. Was it Forbes or Fortune?
It was Forbes.
Forbes, sorry. Dave, anything else? You're muted. There you go.
No, thank you, Dale. Appreciate that.
What?
Who's our bond buyer?
Robert? You can unmute Robert Sladen.
Okay, yes, sorry. Yeah, this is Robert Slavin at the Bond Buyer. I'm sorry, I had some technical problems earlier, so I can't, I'm not sure everything that was said earlier. But the amount of municipal debt outstanding in the southeastern United States is comparatively low compared to the rest of the United States. If you compare the amount of debt per capita, and it seems that it's the way it is in North Carolina. Obviously, that has pluses, but it also has minuses, and maybe some projects don't get funded that should be funded. I was wondering if you could comment about this fact and about your policy and what should be done going forward in terms of the use of municipal bonds in North Carolina.
Yeah, another opportunity to say that NC stands for nothing compares in terms of our state general obligation debt. I don't think even as sophisticated as Bond Buyer is, that you'll find any state over the last 8 years that's retired 60% of their state general obligation debt as we have. So whatever these statistics that you're quoting, we're top of the rope in terms of grade A in terms of actually retiring state general obligation debt. Our DOT continues to max out their credit card, but that's, generally between them and the General Assembly. I'll also say, and some of you may have forgotten, that all the things that the Treasurer's Office has done, I think I've done something that no treasurer's ever done, and that is to buy back $20 million worth of our general obligation debt at 71 cents on the dollar. And that really mean? What that means is somebody knocks on your door and says, would you like to buy your mortgage back at 71 cents on the dollar? And you happen to have the money in your back pocket. That's what we did. Now, it's not a big amount of money in relation to $250 billion, but it was fun to do something no one's ever done. And don't take my word for that. Just 3 weeks ago, this transaction was completed 5 months ago. DTC finally cleared this bond as not being outstanding anymore because no one had ever bought back their own debt and retired it. That's how unfamiliar DTC was. They've had bonds called, they've had bonds pre-refunded, they've had bonds mature, they've had all these other things go on in the municipal bond market. But so that's something that we're very proud of. As far as issuing debt, as the chair of the local government commission, which is meeting this afternoon, the next treasurer is going to have to look at the amount of debt that's being put on at the county and city level on property taxpayers. I do think it's bad for society, especially when we have so many of our fixed income people who their biggest tax burden is actually the real estate taxes. That real estate taxes continue to go up at the local level that makes their staying in their home unaffordable. So I think the next treasurer, Treasurer-elect Briner, will hopefully continue on the path to pay off state debt. Number one. Number two, nobody at the General Assembly has ever told this, but I think that they would like to have no general obligation debt in North Carolina. So that goes along with the fact that I think we're the only first state that had a corporate income tax to eliminate it over the next few years. No general obligation debt, no corporate income tax. I think that's going to put North Carolina on a very solid path going forward.
Thank you.
Yeah. Dave, you have another question, bud?
No, I just forgot to take that down, but as long as you ask me, do you think we need a Doge in state government after your experience?
Do we have a what? Do we need a what?
One of those Doge things like Mr. Musk and Mr. Ramaswamy are talking about up in DC?
I have no idea. I know Vivek Ramaswamy pretty well. He had led the effort on the ESG issues, as many of you know. And I don't know what their plans are, but I think in general, what we need is elected leaders who are not afraid to ask the right question and are not afraid to say no when no needs to be said. Any other questions? Luciana, do you have one? Okay.
Hi, Treasurer. No, the others got most of the questions I had, but thank you for hosting this today.
Well, thank you. And we appreciate all of you. We've got a whole cast of characters here. I wish somebody would have brought some Chick-fil-A ham biscuits or something, but you could have done that, Frank. Sorry. Next time. All right. Anyway, listen, thank you all. I know that I've always answered my phone when you've called. When I didn't know what you were asking me about, I said that immediately. And when I said I was going to get back to you, and what was your deadline over a certain period of time, I think I've, fully committed to that and performed hopefully up to your expectations. So with that, those are my final words. I want to thank the communication staff here and all the others that keep us in the check delivery business. And I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas. I want to also say on a personal level that everybody on this call is going through something. Everybody on this call has family members that are going through something. Everybody on this call is going to face their first Christmas with this concept that I use called the missing place setting. This is a place that a certain person used to sit all the time, and they're no longer here. And so I say that because Christmas is a celebration, but for many folks, it can be a time of grief. So the best way is to remember what the Bible tells us about grief, and that is when you're faced with uncertainty and anxiety, your only option is to give more. And the best way for you to give more for those individuals who may not be with you this Christmas for the first time in your life is to say their name, tell stories about them. And so that's my parting words to you is to, as Lester Holt says every night, be kind to others.